The fireworks painted the void with colors that had no names in human languages. Grand Admiral Thexanor stood on the observation deck of the Valorian flagship, his forearms crossed in satisfaction as he watched the celebration unfold across 15,000 vessels. Ships from 7 different species floated in precise formation, their hulls still scorched from battle, their crews drunk on victory. "It is finished," Thexanor announced to his command staff. His translator converted his rumbling voice into something the other species could understand. "The human menace has been eliminated." Around him, officers from different worlds nodded their agreement. The Kethrex representatives clicked their mandibles in approval. The Ashani technicians hummed their binary songs of triumph. Even the usually stoic Vrel delegation allowed themselves slight movements that might have been dancing. The battle had lasted 3 months. 3 long months of pushing through the human solar system, fighting past their defense stations, destroying their orbital platforms, and finally crushing their main fleet near the gas giant they called Jupiter. The humans had fought hard, Thexanor admitted to himself. They had been clever with their tactics and brave in their final stand. But bravery meant nothing against superior numbers and technology. "Broadcast the victory message across all channels," Thexanor commanded. "Let every world in the galaxy know that the Galactic Armada has prevailed." His communications officer worked quickly. Within moments, the message went out. Grand Admiral Thexanor's face appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds. His speech was simple and direct. "People of the galaxy, the war is over. The humans who dared to resist the will of the Galactic Council have been defeated. Their fleet lies in ruins. Their world is defenseless. Let this be a lesson to any who would challenge the order we have built together." Across the Armada, celebrations intensified. The Kethrex Queen herself, a creature so massive she required her own command vessel, broadcast her triumph call. The sound echoed through quantum channels, a shriek of victory that made even Thexanor's thick skin ripple with discomfort. In the lower decks of various ships, soldiers gathered in mess halls. They drank fermented liquids from their home worlds and told stories of the battles they had survived. Some mourned friends lost in the fighting, others simply felt relief that it was over. On the Ashani technocracy vessel, Calculated Response, observer Kellis sat alone in his private quarters. Unlike his celebrating colleagues, he felt uneasy. Something about the final battle bothered him. He pulled up the tactical data on his screens and began reviewing it for the 3rd time. The human defense had been competent, but not exceptional. They had used standard tactics, predictable formations, and conventional weapons. For a species that had surprised the galaxy by developing faster-than-light travel independently, they had seemed almost ordinary in their final stand. Kellix's analytical mind turned the problem over like a puzzle. The humans had fought for 3 months. They had given ground slowly, making the Armada pay for every kilometer of space. But in the end, they had gathered their remaining ships near Jupiter and fought a conventional battle. They had lost. It was too simple. Kellix pulled up the intercepted human communications from the final days. Evacuation orders from Earth, civilian distress signals, military commands directing the last ships to defensive positions. Everything seemed correct. Everything seemed normal. But that was the problem. It was all too normal. He stood and walked to his own observation port. Outside, he could see the celebration continuing. Fireworks, light shows, ships performing victory rolls. The biggest military gathering in galactic history, all celebrating their triumph over a single species from a single world. Kellix opened a private channel to the analysis division. "Run a complete scan of all human vessels destroyed in the final battle. I want confirmation of crew complements, weapon systems, and power signatures." The response came back quickly. "Observer Kellix, those scans were completed hours ago. All human vessels match expected specifications. Run them again," Kellix insisted. "And this time, compare them to the human ships we encountered in the first month of the war." There was a pause. "Observer, that will take several hours. Then begin immediately." Kellix closed the channel and returned to his screens. He pulled up the earliest engagements with human forces. Small skirmishes at the edge of their solar system. Those first human ships had been different, more advanced. Their weapons had been more powerful, their shields stronger, their tactics more aggressive. The humans in the final battle had seemed weaker, as if they had forgotten how to fight, or as if they were different ships entirely. Somewhere in the void between Jupiter and Saturn, a small escape pod drifted silently. Its power was turned down to minimum levels, its hull painted to absorb sensor beams. Inside, Captain Maria Chen floated in zero gravity, listening to the celebration broadcast with growing anger. She had survived when her frigate, the Constellation, had been torn apart by Keithrek's plasma fire. She had watched 300 crew members die in an instant. She had barely made it to the escape pod before the reactor went critical. Now she listened to the aliens celebrate their victory, and she wanted to scream. But she did not scream. She remained silent and still. She followed her orders. She waited. On her small display screen, a countdown timer showed 71 hours and 14 minutes. Below it, a simple message. Maintain communication silence. Extraction in progress. Maria closed her eyes and remembered the briefing she had received 6 months ago. The briefing that explained what her ship was really doing, what they were all really doing. The Constellation had not been a front-line combat vessel. None of the ships in the Terran Defense Fleet had been. They were older models, previous generation technology, crewed by volunteers who understood the mission. They were bait. Maria's sister was out there somewhere, beyond the sensor range of the Galactic Armada. So was her brother. So were millions of other humans aboard ships the aliens had never seen, waiting for the signal. 71 hours and 13 minutes. Back on the Valorian flagship, Thexnor accepted congratulations from the Galactic Council members who had traveled to observe the final victory. They praised his leadership and tactical skill. They spoke of peace and the new order that would come now that the human threat was eliminated. Thexnor smiled and accepted their words, but a small part of him wondered about the ease of the final victory. In 300 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts, and his instincts told him something was wrong. He pushed the feeling aside. The humans were defeated. Their planet was defenseless. The war was over. Around him, the celebration continued into the night cycle. Ships maintained their formations, crews rested or drank, and commanders made plans for the occupation of Earth and the integration of humanity's remaining colonies into the Galactic Council. No one noticed the slight distortions at the edge of the system. No one detected the gravitational anomalies forming in the space between stars. No one saw the 4 massive shapes beginning to emerge from dimensions that conventional physics said should not exist. In his quarters, Kellic stared at his screens and waited for the analysis results. His instincts, different from Thexnor's but equally reliable, screamed that they had made a terrible mistake. And in her escape pod, Captain Maria Chen watched the countdown timer and whispered a prayer for what was about to happen. The celebration continued, but the galaxy was about to change forever. 72 hours after the celebration, the sensor alarm went off. Lieutenant Vexes, a young Valorian officer on monitoring duty, almost ignored it. The sensors had been glitchy since the battle. Debris from thousands of destroyed ships created false readings constantly. But this alarm was different. It came from the long-range array, not the local scanners. "Sir, we have anomalous readings at grid reference 774, Vexes reported to the command deck. The duty officer barely looked up from his celebration meal. "Debris field?" "Negative, sir. These readings are coming from beyond the system edge. Distance approximately 40 astronomical units. That got attention." The duty officer put down his food and walked to the sensor station. "Show me," Vexes brought up the display. 4 massive distortions appeared on the screen like ripples in space itself. The readings made no sense. The mass signatures were enormous, but there was nothing there. "Run a diagnostic," the duty officer ordered. "The equipment must be damaged." Vexes ran the diagnostic. Every system showed green. "Sir, the equipment is functioning normally." "Then what are we looking at?" Before Vexes could answer, the distortions changed. Space itself seemed to tear open like fabric ripping along a seam, and through those tears something emerged. The first ship was 15 kilometers long. Vexes stared at the reading, certain it must be wrong. Nothing that large could move through space. Nothing that large could exist. But the sensors did not lie. The massive vessel was there, its hull a dark gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Then a second ship emerged, and a third, and a fourth. "Sound general quarters," the duty officer whispered. "Wake the admiral. Now." Across the Galactic Armada, celebration stopped as the alert spread. Thousands of ships went from relaxed to combat-ready in minutes. Grand Admiral Thexnor reached the command deck of his flagship, still fastening his uniform. "Report," he demanded. His sensor chief, a veteran with 40 years of experience, looked pale. "4 contacts, sir. Unknown configuration. Mass readings indicate each vessel is approximately 15 kilometers in length." Thexnor felt his blood chill. 15 kilometers. The largest ship in the Galactic Armada was 3 kilometers long. "Are they human vessels?" "Transponder signals are broadcasting Terran identification codes, sir." "Impossible," Thexnor said. "We destroyed their fleet. These must be automated platforms. Weapons platforms left as a final defense." Observer Kellix's voice came over the command channel. "Grand Admiral requests permission to speak." "Granted. These are not platforms, sir. I am reading power signatures consistent with active reactors, life support systems, and propulsion drives. These are crude vessels. The humans do not have ships that large," Thexnor insisted. "They did not have ships that large 72 hours ago," Kellix corrected. "But clearly they do now." On the main view screen, the 4 massive vessels hung in space like birds of prey. They made no aggressive moves. They simply existed, their presence a threat by itself. Then the communication came. It was audio only, transmitted on all frequencies. The voice was human, male, and calm. It spoke in perfectly clear Galactic Common, the trade language most species used. "Galactic Armada. This is Admiral James Hawthorne of the Terran United Worlds Navy. You are ordered to stand down your vessels and prepare for negotiations. You have celebrated too soon." Silence filled every command deck across the Armada. Thexnor found his voice first. "Identify your vessels. Two's indomitable, two's defiant, two's resolute, and two's unforgiven." "We are the first dreadnought squadron of the Terran fleet, and we are not the last." Thexnor made a decision. "This is Grand Admiral Thexnor of the Valorian Armada. Your world is defeated. Your fleet is destroyed. We have 15,000 combat vessels. You have 4. Surrender now and your people will be treated fairly." The response was immediate. "Grand Admiral, you destroyed our defense fleet. Congratulations. You defeated ships designed in the 2180s using technology we publicly shared with the galaxy 80 years ago. Would you like to see what we have been building in secret since then?" Something changed in the 4 dreadnoughts. Their hulls began to light up with energy signatures. Weapon ports opened along their massive lengths. Hundreds of launch bays appeared, each one large enough to house a normal-sized human frigate. Kellix's analytical voice cut through the tension. "Grand Admiral, I count over 4,000 individual weapon systems on each vessel. And those are just the ones they are showing us." Inside the escape pod, Captain Maria Chen felt the gentle pull of a tractor beam. She looked at her display and saw the TUW's Indomitable growing larger on her screen. The massive dreadnought was recovering escape pods scattered across the battlefield. The pod locked into a recovery bay. Gravity returned. The hatch opened, and Maria climbed out to see dozens of other survivors being processed by medical teams. And beyond them, through the observation ports, she could see the interior of the dreadnought. It was a city. Entire streets of crew quarters, parks with real trees. The ship was so large it had its own weather system in the central habitat ring. A tall man in an admiral's uniform approached her. His hair was gray, his face lined with age and stress, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "Captain Chen," Admiral Hawthorne said, "welcome aboard. Your sister is waiting for you in Medical Bay 3. Your acting captain did his job well." Maria saluted despite her exhaustion. "The Constellation followed orders, sir. We drew them in." "You did more than that," Hawthorne said quietly. "You made them think they won. That was the hardest part." He turned to look at the view screen showing the Galactic Armada in the distance. 15,000 ships all turning to face the 4 dreadnoughts. "Now comes the easy part," Hawthorne said. "We show them what happens when you wake up a sleeping giant." Back on the Valorian flagship, the Galactic Council members demanded action. They wanted the dreadnoughts destroyed. They wanted proof that humanity was still defeated. Thexnor studied the tactical displays and felt doubt creeping into his mind. The humans had hidden these ships somehow. They had let their people die in a fake defense fleet, while these monsters waited in the dark. What else had they hidden? "Grand Admiral!" The Cathrex Queen's voice boomed over the command channel. "Why do we hesitate? They are only 4 ships. We will crush them as we crushed the others." 4 ships that are each larger than our entire command squadron, Thexnor replied. Size means nothing. Numbers are what matter. We have numbers. Kellic spoke again, his voice urgent. Grand Admiral, I have completed my analysis of the human defense fleet. The ships we destroyed were not their frontline vessels. They were older models deliberately used to mislead us about human capabilities. You are saying we were tricked? Thexnor felt anger rising. I am saying we made assumptions based on incomplete information, Kellic said carefully. The humans allowed us to see what they wanted us to see. On the view screen, the 4 dreadnoughts maintained their position. They did not advance. They did not retreat. They simply waited. Hawthorne's voice came across the communication channel again. Grand Admiral Thexnor, you have 24 hours to begin withdrawing your forces from this system. If you do not, we will be forced to demonstrate our capabilities. I suggest you use this time wisely. Thexnor started to respond, but another alarm cut him off. The sensors had detected more distortions. 8 more massive shapes were emerging from the void at different positions around the system. 8 more contacts, the sensor chief reported. Same configuration as the first 4. We now have 12 of these dreadnoughts surrounding the Armada. The celebration that had filled the fleet 72 hours ago was gone completely. In its place was something the Galactic Armada had not felt in centuries. Fear, and aboard the TUWS Indomitable, Admiral James Hawthorne stood with his hands behind his back and watched the Armada's formation begin to shift uncertainly. He felt no joy in this moment. Only grim determination. Communications, he said quietly. Send the message to all dreadnoughts. Weapons hot. Shields up, but do not fire unless fired upon. Yes, sir. Hawthorne looked at the tactical display showing 12 dreadnoughts against 15,000 alien ships. The numbers should have been impossible. But numbers only mattered if both sides were playing the same game. The humans were playing a different game entirely, and they had been playing it for 50 years. The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted 18 hours. Representatives argued, threatened, and demanded action. Some wanted immediate attack. Others urged caution. All of them wanted to know how the humans had hidden 12 massive warships from the galaxy's best intelligence services. Grand Admiral Thexnor attended the session remotely, his image projected into the council chamber. He listened to the politicians argue while his mind worked through tactical problems. 12 dreadnoughts, probably more hidden somewhere. An enemy that had planned this for decades. Finally, the council speaker called for order. Grand Admiral Thexnor, what is your professional assessment? Thexnor chose his words carefully. The human vessels are technologically advanced beyond our previous estimations. However, they are still outnumbered more than 1,000 to 1. If we coordinate our attack properly, we can overwhelm them through sheer firepower. But you have doubts, Observer Kellic said. He was physically present at the council chamber, his Ashani form standing among the other delegates. I have questions, Thexnor admitted. The humans revealed these ships deliberately. They could have remained hidden and launched a surprise attack. Instead, they showed themselves and demanded negotiations. Why? Because they are weak, the Cuthrex Queen declared. They are hoping to frighten us with size and spectacle. But we have faced larger threats before, have we? Kellic asked quietly. When was the last time any member species of this council faced an existential threat? The question hung in the air. The truth was uncomfortable. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for 3 centuries through overwhelming force. No single species had challenged them in living memory. The council speaker made the decision. We will demand the humans stand down. If they refuse, we will demonstrate our own capabilities. Grand Admiral, you are authorized to conduct a limited strike to prove our superiority. Thexnor saluted. It will be done. But even as he gave the response, he wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. Admiral Hawthorne received the message from the Galactic Council 1 hour later. Stand down or face destruction. He read it twice, then called his command staff together in the briefing room of the Indomitable. They want a demonstration of force, he told the assembled officers. They still think they can intimidate us. Should we show them the Graviton Lance? Asked Captain Rivera, commander of the Resolute. Hawthorne nodded slowly. We need to make them understand the reality of their situation without causing unnecessary casualties. The Graviton Lance is perfect for that. He pulled up a star chart on the main display. There is a rogue moon in this system. Dead rock, no atmosphere, no strategic value. We will use it as our target. How much power? Rivera asked. Full charge. I want them to see what we can do. Maria Chen, recently promoted to acting commander of one of the Indomitable's fighter wings, spoke up. Sir, with respect, if we show them our best weapon, we lose the mystery. The unknown is sometimes more powerful than the known. Hawthorne looked at the young officer with approval. Good thinking, Commander. But sometimes you need to show enough to make them believe without showing everything. We will demonstrate the graviton lance. We will not demonstrate the void missiles, the antimatter torpedoes, or the singularity mines. Around the table, officers nodded their understanding. They had more weapons in their arsenal. Many more. The communication went out to the Galactic Armada. Admiral Hawthorne's calm voice delivered a simple message. Grand Admiral Thexnor, you have requested a demonstration of our capabilities. We will provide one. The rogue moon designated M477 will be our target. You may observe from a safe distance. What we are about to show you is one weapon from one ship. Remember that. Thexnor immediately ordered all ships to maximum safe distance from the target moon. Sensors were focused on both the moon and the human dreadnought Indomitable. The massive human ship moved into position with surprising grace for something so large. It oriented itself toward the moon, approximately 1 million kilometers away. All vessels report ready, Thexnor's tactical officer reported. Sensors recording on all frequencies. On the Indomitable, Hawthorne gave the order. Captain Rivera, you may fire when ready. The graviton lance was humanity's most powerful directed energy weapon. It did not fire energy in the conventional sense. Instead, it manipulated gravity itself, creating a focused beam of gravitational force that could compress matter to impossible densities. The weapon charged. Energy readings from the Indomitable spiked dramatically. Then a beam, barely visible to the naked eye, shot across the distance between ship and moon. The moon did not explode. Instead, it began to compress. Thexnor watched in horror as the celestial body, approximately 1,200 kilometers in diameter, began to shrink. The compression happened impossibly fast. Rock and metal and frozen gases all crushed together under forces that should not exist. In 4.7 seconds, the moon became a sphere approximately 120 kilometers in diameter. A perfect dense ball of compressed matter that glowed white-hot from the energy released during compression. Silence filled every command deck in the Galactic Armada. By the ancestors, Thexnor whispered. Kellix's voice came across the command channel, quiet and shaken. That was not an explosion. That was controlled gravitational manipulation. They compressed an entire moon like squeezing a fruit. The technology required for that is centuries beyond our own. Before anyone could respond, alerts began blaring. 500 Cathrex vessels were breaking formation. What are they doing? Thexnor demanded. The Cathrex Queen has ordered an attack, his communications officer reported. She says the humans used their best weapon and now are vulnerable while it recharges. Tell her to stand down. That is a direct order from, but it was too late. 500 Cathrex ships, each one a deadly assault vessel designed for swarm tactics, accelerated toward the human dreadnought formation. They moved fast, using the zigzag patterns that had made them famous across the galaxy. Aboard the Indomitable, alarms sounded. Incoming Cathrex attack wave, the tactical officer reported. 500 vessels attack formation. Hawthorne did not hesitate. Deploy drone swarms. Point defense to automatic. Do not use primary weapons. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Yes, sir. The Cathrex ships closed the distance rapidly. They were 15 minutes from engagement range. 10 minutes. 5 minutes. Then the Indomitable responded. Launch bays across all 12 dreadnoughts opened simultaneously. What emerged was like a metallic cloud. Thousands upon thousands of autonomous fighters, each one no larger than a personal vehicle, swarmed out into space. The drones moved with precision that no living pilot could match. They organized into formations, created overlapping fields of fire, and adapted their tactics in real time using quantum computers that processed information faster than organic brains could imagine. The Cathrex ships opened fire first. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds filled space with deadly energy. The human drones dodged, not all of them, but enough. The formations shifted and flowed like schools of fish, and where the Cathrex expected to find targets, they found empty space. Then the drones returned fire. The weapons were not designed to destroy. They were designed to disable. Precise energy beams targeted engines, weapons, and power systems. Each drone knew exactly where to shoot, to knock a K-Threx ship out of the fight without killing the crew. The point defense systems activated next. These were the real terror. Railguns that fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed, thousands of them, all firing simultaneously, all controlled by targeting computers that never missed. The K-Threx attack wave lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, all 500 ships were disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. Their crews were alive but drifting in space waiting for rescue. The human dreadnoughts had sustained 0 damage. 0 Thexnor stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 500 ships. The K-Threx Queen's personal assault fleet. Defeated in less time than it took to eat a meal. Hawthorne's voice came across the communication channel, and now there was an edge to it. Grand Admiral Thexnor, we have demonstrated both our weapons technology and our combat effectiveness. Your K-Threx allies attacked us without provocation. We defended ourselves with minimal force. Their crews are alive and unharmed. He paused, letting that sink in. We could have destroyed them. We chose not to. Please understand what that means. Thexnor understood. The humans were showing mercy, which meant they were confident enough in their superiority to afford mercy. Hawthorne continued. You asked how many ships we have. I will tell you. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 pocket dreadnoughts, each the size of your largest vessels, and enough support ships to maintain operations indefinitely. We built this fleet over 50 years, in shipyards hidden in the Oort cloud of our system, using resources you did not know we had access to. The Admiral's voice hardened. We did not build this fleet because we wanted war. We built it because 80 years ago, when we first made contact with your Galactic Council, we were treated as primitives and threats. We were given ultimatums and demands. We were told to submit or be destroyed. We chose a third option. We chose to prepare. On the observation deck of the Indomitable, Maria Chen stood with her sister Sarah, who served as a navigator on the Resolute. They watched the disabled K-Threx ships drifting in space. I killed 342 today, Sarah said. Observer Kellex worked in his quarters for 16 hours straight. The spy device he had planted during his diplomatic visit to the Indomitable was simple technology, easy to overlook. It was designed to intercept internal communications, nothing more. What it revealed surprised him completely. He had expected to find military communications, battle plans, weapons specifications, strategic weaknesses he could exploit. Instead, he found personal messages, crew logs, private conversations between humans who thought no one was listening, a message from a mother to her daughter. I have not seen Earth in 7 years. I wonder if I ever will again. But we are doing this for you so you can grow up free. A conversation between 2 engineers. The reactor is overheating again. We need parts we do not have. If we push it much longer, we risk complete failure. But orders are orders. A doctor's report. Crew member Hansen is having psychological breaks. He has killed over 2,000 enemy combatants through drone operations. He is 20 years old. This is the 4th case this month. Kellex read through hundreds of these intercepted messages. Slowly, a picture formed in his mind. The humans were not running on hatred or vengeance. They were running on fear and desperation. They were terrified. The dreadnoughts were powerful, yes, but they were also the result of 3 generations of humans living in secret colonies, working in hidden shipyards, sacrificing normal lives for a military buildup that consumed their entire civilization. Children who grew up never seeing their home planet, families separated for decades, an entire species mobilized for war they did not want, but felt they needed to survive. Kellex sat back in his chair and processed this information. The humans were not monsters. They were people pushed to an extreme situation who had responded with extreme measures, and now they were exhausted. The question was, what should he do with this information? He could share it with the Galactic Council. They could use it to find weaknesses, the psychological cracks in the human command structure, the mechanical failures in their ships, the growing unrest among crews who wanted to go home, or he could use it to broker peace. Kellex made his decision. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Hawthorne sat in his private quarters and reviewed casualty reports. The K-Threx engagement had resulted in minimal enemy deaths, but minimal was not 0. 43 Cathrex crew members had died when their ships lost power in the vacuum of space before rescue arrived. 43 beings who would never go home. 43 families who would mourn. He opened his personal log and began recording. It was a habit from his early military days, one he had never broken. Day 73 of active operations. We demonstrated the graviton lance today. The desired effect was achieved. The Galactic Armada is now aware of the technological gap between our forces. The Cathrex attack was repelled with acceptable losses on both sides. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I sometimes wonder if my children would be proud of what I have become. Jessica would be 47 now. Marcus would be 45. They died in the pre-war conflicts. The border skirmishes that showed us the Galactic Council had no intention of treating us as equals. I built this fleet to protect humanity. But what have I protected them from? War? We are in the middle of one. Destruction. We have destroyed so much already. Freedom? My crews live in metal boxes following orders, killing enemies they have never met. Perhaps there is no good answer. Perhaps there is only duty. He stopped recording and closed the file. No one would ever hear these words. They were for him alone. A message appeared on his command screen. Observer Kellex requesting a secure channel meeting. Hawthorne considered refusing. Then he accepted. Kellex's image appeared on the screen. The Ashani looked tired. His usually perfect posture slightly slumped. Admiral Hawthorne, I need to speak with you honestly, Kellex said. Go ahead. I planted a spy device on your ship during my visit. I will not apologize for this as we are at war. However, what I discovered has changed my perspective. Hawthorne's expression did not change. What did you discover? That your people do not want this fight. That your crews are breaking under the strain. That your ships, while powerful, are held together by determination and desperation rather than unlimited resources. And what will you do with this information? Hawthorne asked quietly. That depends on you, Admiral. Do you want this war to continue? Hawthorne was silent for a long moment. Then he said, no, I never wanted it to start. But when the Galactic Council gave us the choice between submission and extinction, we chose a third path. We chose to make ourselves too dangerous to subjugate. You succeeded, Kelly said. But success has brought you to a precipice. The hardliners in our armada are planning a full assault. All 14,000 remaining ships in a coordinated strike. They believe overwhelming numbers can still prevail. They are wrong, Hawthorne said. I know. But they will try anyway. And then you will be forced to respond with full force. Millions will die on both sides. Your fleet will be damaged, possibly destroyed. And even if you win, you will have made enemies of every species in the galaxy. What is your alternative? Kellex leaned forward. I broadcast the truth. I show the galaxy what I found in your communications. I show them that humans are not monsters but people fighting for survival. I show them that continuation of this war will benefit no one. And you think that will stop them? Hawthorne's voice was skeptical. No, but it might stop enough of them. The younger generation questions this war already. Many species joined the Armada because they were told humans were a threat to galactic order. If they learn the truth, some will withdraw support. Hawthorne considered this. What do you want in return? A chance for my people to survive what is coming, Kellex said. Because, Admiral, I have run the projections. If the Armada attacks and you respond with full force, the Ashani technocracy will be devastated. We are positioned in the center of the battle formation. So this is about saving your own people? Yes, Kellex admitted, but also about ending a war that should never have started. Is that so wrong? Before Hawthorne could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. The tactical officer's voice came over the command channel. Admiral to the bridge. The Armada is moving. All 14,000 ships are assuming attack formation. Hawthorne stood immediately. Observer Kellex, I suggest you get clear of the combat zone. What happens next will not be pleasant. He closed the channel and ran to the bridge. The main view screen showed the full Galactic Armada in motion. 14,000 ships representing 7 different species, all moving into a coordinated assault formation. It was the largest military maneuver in galactic history. Status of all dreadnoughts, Hawthorne ordered. All 12 dreadnoughts reporting ready. Pocket dreadnoughts moving into support positions. Drone swarms deployed. All weapon systems armed. Enemy time to engagement range, 40 minutes at current speed. Hawthorne looked at the numbers. 14,000 against 12. His ships were more powerful, but there were limits. He had known this moment might come. He had prepared for it. Communications send to all dreadnoughts. Authorization code Phoenix 77. Initiate protocol Scorched Sky. Around him, his bridge crew froze. They knew what that protocol meant. If Earth fell, if the dreadnoughts were destroyed, automated systems would activate across the galaxy. Hidden weapons platforms, sleeper agents, revenge systems designed to hunt the Galactic Council for centuries. Sir, his executive officer said quietly, are you certain? If they destroy us here, they will attack Earth next. Our planet is defenseless. Protocol Scorched Sky ensures that even if we lose, they lose more. It is the only deterrent we have left. The timer counted down. 30 minutes to engagement. Maria Chen sat in her fighter ready to launch. Around her, 300 other pilots waited. They knew the odds. They knew most of them would not survive the next hour. Sarah's voice came over a private channel. Maria, if we do not make it, do not talk like that, Maria interrupted. No, listen. If we do not make it, I want you to know I am proud we fought together. Mom and Dad would be proud too. Maria felt tears forming but forced them back. We are going to make it, both of us. And then we are going to go home and see Earth again. I hope you are right. 20 minutes to engagement. Aboard his flagship, Grand Admiral Thexnor gave the order he had been dreading. All ships, weapons free. Commence attack on my mark. Around him, his command staff worked silently. There was no celebration now. No confidence. Only grim determination. Grand Admiral, his communications officer said, we are receiving a wideband transmission. It is from Observer Kellic. Put it through. Kellic's voice filled the bridge. But it was not a private communication. It was broadcasting on all frequencies to every ship in both fleets. Attention all vessels. This is Observer Kellic of the Ashani Technocracy. I have information about the human forces that everyone must hear. Cut that transmission, Thexnor ordered. Unable to comply, sir. He is using a Priority Council override code. Kellic continued. I have intercepted human communications. I have seen inside their ships. And what I found... The neutral station was called Haven's Grace. It was an old trading post built centuries ago when the Galactic Council was young. Now it served as a meeting place for diplomatic encounters that needed neutral ground. Admiral James Hawthorne arrived first. His shuttle docked at the station's main port. He wore his formal uniform but carried no weapons. As agreed, no guards accompanied him. Just one man walking into a room that could be a trap. He had lived long enough not to fear death. But he feared failure. The meeting room was simple. A table, 2 chairs, a window showing the stars beyond. Hawthorne sat and waited. Grand Admiral Thexnor arrived 15 minutes later. The Valorian was taller than Hawthorne, his forearms moving with practiced military precision. He also wore his formal uniform. He also carried no weapons. They looked at each other across the table. 2 old warriors, both exhausted, both carrying the weight of their people's survival. You look tired. Admiral Hawthorne, Thexnor said finally. So do you. Grand Admiral, Thexnor sat down heavily. For a moment neither spoke. Then the Valorian said, I am 347 years old. I have fought in 17 wars. I have never lost a battle. Until now I have never faced an enemy I could not defeat. You have not lost, Hawthorne said. Not yet. We both know the truth. If we continue fighting, my armada will be destroyed. We might damage your dreadnoughts, perhaps destroy 1 or 2. But the cost would be catastrophic. Millions dead. And for what? Hawthorne leaned back in his chair. For what, indeed? I have been asking myself that question for 50 years. Why did it come to this? Why could we not find peace? Because the Galactic Council is old, Thexnor said. Old and set in its ways. When your people developed faster than light travel independently, it frightened the Council. No one had done that in centuries. Most species receive the technology from us with conditions attached. Control. But we figured it out ourselves, Hawthorne said. So you could not control us. Yes, and beings who cannot be controlled are threats. Or so the Council decided. Thexnor activated a small data device on the table. Images appeared in the air between them. Communications, orders, secret meetings. I have been investigating, Admiral. The incident that started this war, the attack on your colony ship Horizon, was not what we were told. The Council claimed your ship violated territorial agreements, but I have found evidence that suggests the attack was orchestrated. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. By who? Extremists on both sides. beings who wanted conflict because they profit from it. Arms manufacturers. Political factions seeking power. They manipulated events to make war inevitable. The horizon was carrying 3,000 colonists, Hawthorne said quietly. Families, children, all dead to start a war that benefited a few. Yes, and now millions more have died continuing it. Hawthorne looked at the data. Names he recognized. Companies that supplied weapons to both sides. Politicians who had gained power through war rhetoric. A conspiracy that spanned decades and multiple species. If this information is accurate, many powerful beings will want it buried. They will try, Thexnor agreed. But observer Kellex has already copied it and distributed it widely. Too late to suppress now. The truth is spreading. So what do we do? Hawthorne asked. We end this, not with victory for either side, but with something harder. Peace. They talked for 6 hours. They negotiated. They argued. They found common ground. A ceasefire would be immediate. Human dreadnoughts would withdraw to defensive positions around Earth and human colonies. The Galactic Armada would withdraw beyond the Kuiper Belt. A joint commission would investigate the war's origins and prosecute those responsible. But the hardest part was trust. How could they trust each other after so much death? We start small, Kellex said. He had joined the meeting remotely, his image projected into the room. Joint projects, scientific cooperation, cultural exchanges. We show both our peoples that the other side is not monsters. My people will resist, Thexnor said. Many still believe humans are dangerous. My people will resist too, Hawthorne added. We have spent 3 generations preparing for war. Peace will feel like surrender to some. Then we must lead, Kellex said simply. That is what leaders do. The formal ceasefire was signed 18 hours later. Ships from both fleets witnessed it. The document was simple but profound. Both sides agreed to stop killing each other and start talking instead. It was not perfect. It solved nothing completely. But it was a start. 5 years passed. The colony of New Harmony was built on a moon orbiting a gas giant in neutral space. Half the inhabitants were human. Half were from various Galactic Council species. The children played together without knowing they were supposed to be enemies. Maria Chen stood on the observation deck of the colony's main habitat. Her son, 3 years old, played with a young Valorian child. They were arguing about who got to use the blue toy ship. Universal concerns that crossed all species boundaries. They don't remember the war, Sarah said, standing beside her sister. She had retired from military service and now taught engineering at the colony's technical school. That's a good thing, Maria replied. Is it? If they forget, they might make the same mistakes. We won't let them forget. But we won't let the hate define them either. Down on Earth, the dreadnoughts were being converted. The weapon systems were removed. The graviton lances were retooled to bore tunnels through asteroids for mining. The massive vessels that had been built for destruction now served construction. Not all of them. Some remained as defense platforms just in case, but most were repurposed. Aboard what had been the TWS Indomitable, now renamed the Humanity's Hope, engineers worked to install hydroponics bays where missile silos once sat. The ship would become a mobile colony, carrying humans and aliens together to explore regions of space beyond the galactic rim. Admiral James Hawthorne, now retired, visited the ship one last time. He walked the corridors he had commanded during the war. They seemed different now, quieter, more peaceful. Captain Chen found him in the observation deck. Admiral, we're honored by your visit. I am not an admiral anymore, Maria. Just an old man visiting memories. The ship looks different. Everything looks different now, Hawthorne said. Better, I think, but different. They stood together in silence, watching workers install equipment that would help grow food instead of launch weapons. Do you regret it? Maria asked. Building the dreadnoughts? Hawthorne considered the question carefully. I regret that they were necessary. But I do not regret protecting our people. Sometimes you must be strong to survive long enough to find peace. And did we find it? Peace? We found the beginning of it. The rest is up to the next generation. Far away, Grand Admiral Thexnor sat in his retirement garden on Valoria Prime. He tended to plants that had been in his family for generations. Simple work that cleared the mind. A communication chime interrupted his thoughts. He accepted it and saw Admiral Hawthorne's face on the screen. James, Thexnor said warmly, I was not expecting your call. I wanted to invite you to the chess tournament next month, Hawthorne said. We play remotely, but they're organizing an in-person event. I thought you might want to compete. Chess, the human strategy game you taught me. And you beat me 3 games out of 5 last time. 4 out of 5. Thexnor corrected with amusement. But who is counting? They talked for an hour about nothing important. Gardens, games, grandchildren. The small things that make life worth living. When the call ended, Thexnor returned to his plants. He thought about war and peace, about the choices that define civilizations. They had come so close to destroying each other, so close to making the same mistakes that had plagued the galaxy for centuries, but they had chosen differently. It was not a perfect choice. Peace never was. But it was better than the alternative. The Joint Commission released its final report on the war's origins. The evidence was damning. 17 individuals from various species were arrested and charged with crimes against sentient beings. The trial would last years and change how the Galactic Council operated. Reforms were proposed. New rules for first contact with emerging species. Limitations on military buildups. Transparency in Council operations. It would take decades to implement everything, but the process had begun. Captain Maria Chen, now commanding the exploration vessel Unity, prepared for her mission. The ship was crewed by humans and 12 different alien species. Their goal was to explore the uncharted regions beyond the galactic rim. She stood on the bridge and looked at her diverse crew. Engineers, scientists, pilots, all working together. 5 years ago, they would have been enemies. Now they were colleagues. Some had become friends. Captain, we're ready to depart, her first officer reported. He was a Shawnee, trained by Observer Kellix himself. Then let's go explore the unknown, Maria said. The Unity lifted off from New Harmony and accelerated toward deep space. Behind them, the colonies grew. The peace held. Life continued. Far away at the edge of explored space, sensors detected something unusual. Massive energy signatures moving in patterns that matched no known species. Something was coming toward the galaxy from the void beyond. The signals were detected by both human and Galactic Council monitoring stations. The information was shared immediately without hesitation. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. Thank you for what